This week on The Watchman, we are taking you inside the most famous and significant archaeological discovery in Israel's history. It's the Dead Sea Scrolls. Behind me, you see cave number 4, where some 90% of the scrolls were found. So what do they mean? Why were they written? Who wrote them? And what is the link of John the Baptist to the Dead Sea Scrolls? Join us today in the stunning Judean desert to find out. It's The Watchman, it's Christians United for Israel, only right here on TBN. Danny, welcome back to The Watchman for another great adventure here in the land of Israel.
Always pleased to be with you.
Yeah, always great to have you, my friend. And today, wow, this is a special one, Danny. The legendary Dead Sea Scrolls. Now, people at home have probably heard of them. Look, this is the most significant find, archaeological find in the history of Israel, and that is saying something. So, okay, let's start with what exactly the Dead Sea Scrolls are, Danny. And by the way, they were found in the cliffs just over our shoulders right here.
We are standing in the area where all the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. Cave 1 and 2 are actually behind you, and cave number 3 is there in the distance. Cave 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are about a mile that way. And cave 11 is right behind us, over here. Okay? Between 1947 to 1956, in the total of these 11 caves, over 16,000 fragments of scrolls were uncovered. 20 of them are more or less complete and intact. The rest are little tiny pieces in some cases.
Which are pieced together,
yes,
meticulously.
To this day, it has not really been completed because there's a lot of guesswork that can always be added. It's like making a big puzzle with half of it missing, and there's no big picture in the back to follow.
And with delicate 2,000-year-old material that, God forbid, you rip one or...
And in the past, you know how they pieced them together with Scotch tape. It was a terrible mistake. It left a terrible stain. And now the big battle is to keep the Dead Sea Scrolls in the Israel Museum where they are stored from continuous deterioration. The best thing for them would be to be left alone in the caves. Okay, because here it's very dry, not a typical day to demonstrate this. It's very hot, it's very dry. You have salinity from the Dead Sea, which also helps for the preservation. And we're now trying to do our best to fight against the erosion, the deterioration of the scrolls when they are in the museum.
Yeah, they probably in many ways, Danny, may have been better preserved if they stayed in the caves, but man, I don't believe in coincidences. And the fact that they were found in 1947, 1948, as the modern state of Israel was reborn, I think is very telling.
And here we are, returning to our homeland and finding texts by our ancestors left here to be read again.
It's almost like a roadmap. And by the way, we're not allowed in these caves, unfortunately. The Israeli Antiquities Authority has very strict rules, but you can get a very clear view of them now. Now, who found the scrolls? This is a very interesting wrinkle to the story, Danny. Who actually found the scrolls in these caves?
Yes, the official version, it was a chance find by 2 Bedouins. Winter of 1946, they're wandering in this area looking for a lost goat. That's the official version. I suspect that they may have been scouting for antiquities, but one way or the other, they found a cave, which is later listed as cave number 1, with 10 jars. 8 are empty. 1 has a lot of brown soil in it, according to their report. And the 10th one has 7 wrapped scrolls. Now, they're not know what they're holding. They're not sure of what it is.
And they were kids, right? They were young,
No,
weren't they?
no, they were in their 20s, according to the photos of the days. And so they go to an antiquity dealer in Bethlehem. That's where the antiquity shops are to this day. The first guy takes a look at this and tells them, guys, you're taking a big risk because this is from a synagogue he could tell that it's Hebrew writing, and you should take it back to the synagogue, or both you and I will go into jail. The British are still around, I'm reminding you. Okay? The Bedouins, as you say in English, thought maybe they'll get a second opinion, and they go to another dealer known as Mr. Kandu, who has maybe less of an ethic moral. He decides to buy it. He tries to play a poker face saying, oh, they're probably worth nothing. He pays him the value of $28 for the first of the 7 Dead Sea Scrolls.
For the greatest archaeological find in the history of Israel.
Yes. And then
I'd say that's a bargain.
Yeah, not bad. For 2,000-year-old manuscripts. And then he goes to Professor Eliezer Lipa Sukenik of the Hebrew University in the Institute of Archaeology. As a young student, I used to work in the same office, by the way. Yeah. And he introduces it to him. And I can only imagine Sukenik's jaw dropping when he takes a first look at those scrolls. Because as a scholar, he knew right away, this is not modern Hebrew, it's not even medieval Hebrew. The shape of the letters was in use 2,000 years ago. Now, how can a font, how can writing that is 2,000 years old be found today on animal skin, on organic material?
And they were in decent condition?
In pretty good condition. The first 7 scrolls were easily readable.
Out of 16,000 fragments.
Yes.
Staggering number. What a treasure trove. And Danny, you know, it's interesting. It's still remote. We are in the desert right now. But I can imagine at that time in the 1940s, around the rebirth of Israel, it was even more remote. There were probably very few people who came out this way, I would think.
Yes, in fact, the day that Sukenik ends up buying some of the scrolls, he returns from Bethlehem with the scrolls in his arm. And when he opens them on the radio, he hears something quite interesting, the UN voting for the birth of the State of Israel. It was the 29th of November 1947. The day that the UN approves of the Jews to have a nation, a Jew is holding manuscripts that were written by Jews here 2,000 years ago.
Proving the ancestral claim to the land.
That's quite a move.
Yeah, that is. I don't think that's a coincidence. So, how soon, Danny, before authorities knew, okay, we have a very significant find here?
Once Sukenik announces these scrolls are real and they're 2,000 years old, this is world sensation. This gets world headlines, okay? Along with the other headlines about the war erupting here.
It's proof of the Bible.
Indeed, it's proof of the antiquity and continuation of Jewish presence here in ancient times. And the big hunt begins.
Well, Danny, this is the big one. This is the most significant site out of the 11 caves. This is cave number 4, some 90% of the Dead Sea Scrolls found right here over the horizon where we're standing.
After the discovery of cave number 3, about a mile in that direction, the archaeologists thought that's the end of the story. But then Bedouins start bringing many scraps to the dealers in Jerusalem, and they tell that's coming from a new cave, cave number 4. And indeed, most of the scrolls came out of this cave, which, as you can see, can barely be accessed from the bottom. And these people also came here to be in the desert, to go out of Jerusalem for both political reasons and spiritual reasons. But when they heard apparently that an enemy is coming, they decided to hide their library. And cave 4 was apparently the main deposit. And after running out of space here, they spread them in the other caves.
Yeah, and it's a bit more remote than the other caves and a bit more separated, it seems like.
It seems like it's more difficult to access it, although you can actually slide into it. And after cave 4 became public, then we realized that it's linked to a site behind us, whose Arabic name is Qumran. Now, we don't know its ancient name, we don't know its modern name, so we still call it Qumran. But apparently Qumran is where the people of the Dead Sea Scrolls lived.
So Danny, clearly the authors of the Dead Sea Scrolls, look, there were enemies in Jerusalem, political, as we said, and spiritual. What's very clear is they came out here, you don't come out here to start a party. They came out here to be alone, to be remote, to be removed.
To follow their own lifestyle and not be interrupted. And also by being here as Jews and not in Jerusalem, it's expressing their disagreement with how Jerusalem is handled. They're apparently with a big conflict with the priests of Jerusalem, and they say, we will be here, we will wait for a Messiah, and when he will arrive, then we will take over. One of the scrolls describes how the temple would be operated when they'll be in charge again.
It brings to mind the fact, just bringing it to the current day, that the Jewish people are not occupiers of this land.
You kidding me? What can be a better proof than a 2,000-year-old scroll in Hebrew of the Old Testament found here?
Up next, we visit the ruins of ancient Qumran to see how the authors of the Dead Sea Scrolls lived and why they hid the scrolls. Don't move.
Long before he was the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence was a friend to Christians United for Israel. Now, he's helping us make Israel stronger and her people safer.
Pastor John Hagee, I thank you for your leadership on behalf of this nation and the Jewish state of Israel. And today, through Christians United for Israel, more than 3.3 million believers have raised their voices, have not been silent in support of Israel. And you can be heard in every city and town across America and in every office on Capitol Hill. And rest assured, the man down the street at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue hears you too. I have faith that with God's help, and with the men and women gathered here, the best days for Israel and for America are yet to come.
Don't miss next year's summit. Join the movement and register now for the 2018 CUFI Washington Summit.
Well, Danny, we are in the shadow of cave number 4, the most significant cave in relation to the Dead Sea Scrolls, and we are standing in the amazing remains of an ancient community that was based here right around the Dead Sea Scrolls caves. This is Qumran. Tell us what went down here.
Well, Qumran, first of all, is the Arabic name.
Yeah.
To this day, we don't know the ancient name of it. And the excavations here followed the discovery of cave number 4. It became clear that the scrolls are linked to the ruins over here. In the 1950s, a French team led by Roland Devaux uncovers the whole site around us and finds here quite a lot of unusual finds. First of all, a large numbers of ritual baths, a mikveh. Now, a mikveh, a ritual bath, makes a lot of sense in Jerusalem before going up to the temple. But here, in the middle of nowhere, okay, that's an unusual feature. Then a big hole found over there is found empty, but next to it, a small room filled with hundreds of bowls seems to indicate there was some sort of a community dining room. And in the room over here, they find evidence of benches, maybe the place where the Dead Sea Scrolls were written. And the whole thing seems to be a center of a community that followed a certain leader. Was very sensitive to purity, so it kept purifying itself again and again and living as a community also by dining together.
Danny, the obsession with purity that you describe, I guess it's very fitting. Look, this was a very, very deeply religious community out here, so it makes a lot of sense that they would have the mikvahs out here and they'd be ritually purifying themselves constantly. This was a messianic movement here.
Yes. On one hand, eating in a dining room may remind us a bit as Israelis of a kibbutz, you know, a community lifestyle, but they were very, very religious. It was a religious kibbutz. And purity then was a big issue, okay? Women after a period, priests before every meal. And here, although you're in the desert and it was apparently only a male community, they still followed a very strict law over remaining pure at all times.
It almost has a monastic type feel.
Yes, this was the first recorded monastery in the world, and it's a Jewish monastery. It's before the Christians would recreate that lifestyle.
Well, Danny, that's pretty amazing. We are standing in the remains of the first monastery in world history here in Israel.
You could phrase it like this, definitely.
Wow. Okay, this community was here. They were isolated for many reasons, as we discussed. What if they had to escape? What if they had to leave this place, pack up and get out of here?
For one thing, the site is not very well defended.
Yeah.
You don't really have a wall. What you do have is where we're standing, a watchtower. So you can get warnings if there's an enemy coming from anywhere. And indeed, we think that the site ended when they saw smoke coming from the area of Jericho.
Not that far from here.
No. That smoke was the Romans advancing from the north destroying side by side. They were on their way to Jerusalem. The 10th Legion we know passed here. And when Jericho is knocked down, the guys here know there might be next, but they still have a few hours. And that may have been the few critical hours that enabled them to take all the library from here and hide it in Cave 4, and when they ran out of space, in all the other caves around us.
Danny, this is amazing. The Dead Sea Scrolls were stashed or hidden in these caves, probably under great duress, under great stress with the mighty Roman army, Roman legion advancing.
Yes, and no one survived, okay? This group of people either fled or fought till the bitter end. No one ever came back to retrieve those scrolls, but they were kept here for 2,000 years till, as we said, a Bedouin finds the first of them in cave number 1.
What is the Christian link? Why should Christians care about this site? There's a very significant link, right?
A magical one, in my opinion, and it's John the Baptist. A popular theory argues that maybe John the Baptist was a member of this community, at least for a while. We know from the New Testament he went to the desert, because this is the desert. He anticipated the Messiah. So did these guys, okay? So many values that he expressed are expressed also in the scrolls, but there's one big difference. These guys kept using water on daily basis for ritual cleansing, for purity. John the Baptist says, no, the use of water is for preparation, cleansing of the body, repenting and anticipating the Messiah. And on this, perhaps they had a big argument, so eventually he left. But where does he go to? Where does he eventually starts baptizing people? The new concept of baptism, where is it practiced? At the Jordan River. And Christian tradition argues it's over there, just a 5-6 hours walk away from here. Also, where was John the Baptist beheaded? In Machaeros. That's also just across the lake. Okay, so even the geographical setting fits the biography of John the Baptist.
Now, Danny, you mentioned the baptism site where John the Baptist baptized many, obviously baptized Jesus, and we're going there now, right?
Yes, the Christian tradition argues that the baptism site is very close to where the Jordan River ends, pouring into the Dead Sea. To this day, you can see busloads of pilgrims going in white gowns into the water, and it's possibly the original location, which is just a walking distance from here, connecting again John the Baptist to the site.
Yeah, where the Bible says Jesus was baptized and that dove descended upon him. Let's do it, Danny, come on.
Let's find that dove.
Israel's enemies are united in their goal to destroy the Jewish state. They all share one purpose: to wipe Israel off the map. Evil forces never stop working to isolate, delegitimize, and weaken Israel. In the face of evil, Christians must not remain silent. Supporting Israel is not a political issue, it is a biblical issue. And you can make a difference in your church, on college campuses, and on Capitol Hill.
In 10 years, you've gathered more than 3 million members and are active on more than 300 college campuses. Kufi never shies away from standing with Israel, from standing with the truth.
Become part of the largest pro-Israel organization in America and help Christians United for Israel push back against the darkness as a beacon of truth. Join over 3 million defenders of Israel when you visit our website at cufi.org and sign the Israel Pledge. Together, we'll make sure that Israel never stands alone.
What a unique, timeless architectural design. The Shrine of the Book houses a selection of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Here, for instance, one can see a mysterious depiction of a futuristic war between sons of light and sons of darkness. But you also have here copies of the Old Testament, interpretation on the Old Testament, hymns and prayers that this community created and followed, and the most significant scroll, the community rule, a selection of codes and rules that one must follow if it wants to join these people who call themselves the Yachad. And what's interesting is that these rules are strikingly similar to one figure from the New Testament, John the Baptist. They both resented the temple. They both went to the desert. They both expected the end of days to come soon. The Dead Sea Scrolls with John the Baptist are, in a way, the cradle of Christianity.
headed right now to the spot where it's believed that John the Baptist baptized Jesus. But before we get there, tell us a little bit more about the history of this site.
Well, in ancient times, it's believed to have been the place where the Israelites crossed into the Promised Land. And one thing I can tell you for sure today, it's a place with minefields. Here's a sign warning you, don't even dare thinking of crossing the fence over here, because after the Six-Day War, this became the border with Jordan. And only 1994, we had an official peace agreement with them. Until then, this had to be cleared of any people because of infiltration, because of fear of terror.
Yes, and you know, Jordan, it's right here, as we're about to see, Danny. We're right on the Jordanian
Here's
border
the
right now.
flag of the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan.
That's right. And what a contrast to have a minefield right next to the spot where John the Baptist baptized Jesus. Let's take a look and go inside.
Let's see that.
Well, Danny, what a day we've had. We started out in the remote Judean desert on the trail of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and now we end up at a very special place. This is the baptismal site, according to many historians, where John the Baptist baptized Jesus. And right now you may hear behind us some people singing hymns. There's people over our shoulder here in the Jordan River getting baptized where Jesus was once baptized. Again, a very special place. But Danny, why are we here? What is the link from John the Baptist to the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Well, the tradition that this is the place goes years, centuries back. From the 4th century and on, Christians started coming here, arguing this is the very place. You have 200 kilometers to choose of, okay? But in the 1950s, the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls proving there's a link to John the Baptist seemed to indicate that tradition is valid, is true, because it's a walking distance from this site.
It's not far from where we were investigating the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Maybe a 5 hours walk.
Sure.
John the Baptist may have been a member of that community, and they shared a lot of values, but on one thing they differed. The people of the Dead Sea Scrolls argued the water is used for purity. John the Baptist said, no, the water is to be used for redemption and for acceptance of the Messiah, which is soon to come. And on this issue, they had to separate. So he goes to his own water source, right here, and he starts baptizing people, telling them he's about to arrive. And at some point, Jesus from the Galilee comes, and when he comes out of the water, a dove appears and a voice is heard, "This is my son who I have chosen."
So our Dead Sea Scrolls story ends in this special place, I would say. But I can't say it really ends because, look, maybe there are some more finds, some more to come, who knows?
First of all, on the Jordanian side, you have interesting archaeological remains from Byzantine times.
And Jordan's right there. We're literally on the edge. Jordan's right there across the river.
Both countries share this significant historical Christian site. And by the way, Christianity also argues that this is the place where the Israelites crossed into the Promised Land led by Joshua. That's why the Arabic name of this site is Qasr el-Yahud, the fortress of the Jews, or the crossing place of the Jews. From here, they finally completed the 40 years in the desert and have reached and entered the Promised Land to confront the first city of Jericho, which is just behind us.
Yeah, wow. What a tour, Danny. And you know, this is kind of in some ways the roots of even Christianity with John the Baptist and his beginnings, the beginnings of his ministry as a voice crying out in the wilderness, as the Bible calls him. Danny, what a journey today. Dead Sea Scrolls, John the Baptist. Doesn't get any better than this. Thank you so much, my friend. It's always great to have you with us here on The Watchman.
My pleasure.
Up next, my final thoughts from the banks of the Jordan River. Stick around.
Israel is under attack. The Jewish people in Israel face terrorism, boycotts, and worldwide condemnation every day. While Israelis try to raise their children in peace, their enemies plot their destruction. Christians United for Israel is speaking out to defend Israel from these relentless attacks. CUFI works with Congress and the White House to ensure America has Israel's back. We are making Israel stronger and her people safer. Join Christians United for Israel as we stand up for Israel in Washington, D.C., in all 50 states, and on hundreds of college campuses. Show the people of Israel they are not alone. Join the largest pro-Israel movement in America when you sign the pledge to support Israel at www.cufi.org/decal. We'll send you this CUFI car decal as your free gift when you pledge to stand with us as we make Israel stronger and her people safer. Add your voice to the millions of Christians speaking out for Zion's sake.
Folks, what a moving way to end our program today, and kind of a surprise ending to take it from Qumran to here at the baptismal site, the traditional site where it's believed John the Baptist baptized Jesus. Special thanks to our good friend Danny the Digger Herman, as always. And what I love the most about this episode is that seamless transition from Old Testament, from the Ahad there at Qumran, writing the Dead Sea Scrolls, which contain a good chunk of the Old Testament, that seamless transition from the Old Testament to the New, here with John the Baptist, who left that group and kind of paved his own trail, ended up baptizing Jesus and kicking off Jesus's ministry right here in the Jordan River. And it reminds me once again, and folks, this is a point we stress often here at Christians United for Israel and on the Watchman show, that without the Old Testament, without that legacy, there is no New Testament. We owe a profound spiritual debt to Israel and the Jewish people. That's just one more reason to stand with Israel in these difficult times. You see the URL on your screen, you see the phone number. Join our movement here at Christians United for Israel. We are the largest pro-Israel organization in the United States, close to 3.4 million members and growing every day. And we are going to continue to bring you the stories, the truth about the Jewish roots of your Christian faith. It is fascinating stuff, as you saw today, and there is much more to come. So, thanks for joining us this week at Qumran, at the Jordan River. It has been a blast. We'll see you again soon. God bless you, and remember, never hold your peace.